Hello class, last time I guess I recorded the same video, but because of some problems the sound was not clear and you did not understand it, so I am just redoing it. This chapter is all about connecting MySQL commands from the Python environment, okay, or broadly it is called interface of Python with MySQL. So basically now we will see how we can execute MySQL commands from a particular Python program or Python script. That is what is the chapter all about. Now before we get into this chapter, a few things we have to be very clear about. First of all, in order to do this interface, you need definitely a package, or rather it is called a driver. Because why it is called a driver? Because it is not a part of exactly the Python interpreter, okay. Like math was a module and you could import that package very easily, or as a matter of fact if you create a package, you know how to create a package, okay. uh, you can import that by writing import statement. But those are basically the part of the Python directory, right? Either Python interpret, they are directly included in the Python interpreter, or you can create on your own and you can put it in the particular directory to access it. But in this particular case, in order to create a interface with Python, what you need to do, you need to import a package from outside. It is not part of Python interpreter. Fine. What is the name of that package? Or rather we call it a driver. It is called mysql.connector. This one you need to download at first. If you are trying out, then at your home in your own PCs, then you have to download this driver first of all from the internet, and that's not a very easy job. As you know, that Python program can be written through ideally normal Python editor, or sometimes you have seen me using Spider, that is Anaconda distribution. Anaconda distribution has another editor called Jupyter, that also can be used. So I in fact tried my best to install this one for the normal Python ideally, but I somehow could not do it. Maybe during installation somewhere I am going wrong, or maybe my Windows 10 is somewhere corrupted or something must have happened. So what I did, I have done this installation, mysql.connector installation I have done for Anaconda distribution. For every editor it is different. So accordingly you have to find it out from the internet, and it's a free software. So we are calling it a driver because it is basically not part of Python interpreter. You have to get it first of all. You have to install it, and you have to install it in a particular manner. Okay, it's not that just you install it. There are a lot of settings to be done for this. So anyway, I have done it for Anaconda distribution and I am making use of it. So once this is done, once this is installed in your computer, then only you can make use of this package. So it is not like other packages, you can directly write import and it starts working. Okay. Now what is the package? After you have installed it properly, how to install and whatever is the process, that I will share with you some other time. Let us continue first what we have to learn in this chapter. So after you install this, what you got to do is, you got to write an import statement as usual, and there you can write import mysql.connector. All are small letters, obviously. mysql.connector. This is how you got to import the package. But in this, there is one more feature or facility. If you want that I will not write such whole thing. Obviously, when you write the package, you need to write package dot functions or modules in order to access those modules under it, right? So if you want to avoid writing such big names, okay, what you can do is you can write as a keyword as, and you can write a short name. Say I wrote the short name as MC. So it becomes import mysql.connector as MC. That means MC will be a short name for this whole thing, right? So what is happening here? Look at this very carefully. We have MySQL here. This is my database. Fine. And I am trying to access this database from this is my Python program. So in the Python program, what will happen? MC will be basically will help you to connect this thing, right? If you write, say instead of MC, I'm just changing the name. Say I wrote SQLPOR. I give this thing because in the notes that I sent you, I used the same name. So I used SQLPOR. So with the help of this SQLPOR, okay, this package, what you have to do, you have to create a connection here. That connection will make a communication between this Python and MySQL. If you remember, you have done a similar kind of thing when you have learned file handling. You created a file object, and the purpose of that file object was to create a communication between your Python program and the actual disk file, that is something .txt or something .dat or something .csv. Okay, so file object's purpose was to communicate between the Python program and the original disk file. So here also the same thing goes. MySQL, wherever MySQL is installed, I am just coming to this part later. Wherever MySQL is there, in order to access the database tables or whatever, obviously you will access the tables because the rows or the tuples or the data will be found under a particular table of a database. So in order to make that connection, first of all, what you need to do, you need to create a connection over there. Okay. Now before I come to this part, how we create a connection, I will just tell you one more thing. Normally what happens in a real life situation, MySQL is installed in a server, and let's think of a server client model. So if we think of a server client model, imagine this is my server and these are all my clients. So what happens, from the server you access the database. The database are always stored in the server. That means MySQL may be installed in the standalone systems or in the clients, but original database is here, fine, in the server. So when you access the database from the clients, okay, what you need to do is you need to write a Python program in such a way that the Python program will communicate with the server in order to get those database accessed. But that is for the real life situation. But in a school, what you are doing is, in the lab we have MySQL installed in all the computers individually. So you sit in a particular system and you try to access the database, because database is also stored in your system itself. Fine. But the syntaxes of various functions and other things, they are designed such a way so that it fits to the server client model. So does that mean that if we do not have server client model, we will not be able to work? No, it is not like that. So that is why I just told you a few things, because in our case, in our lab, how we should do it. If you want to do it in a lab, first of all, if you remember, I told you that this is the short name I have given, SQLPOR. Fine. Now you can write, you can take a connection like this, MC. Fine. This is called connection object. This will be SQLPOR, or if you want, you can write the full name MySQL.connector. Now this particular thing has a package, has a function called connect. Okay, there is no space here, so I am writing the line below. Now this particular function will help you make a connection, establish a connection between your Python program and the SQL database. Fine. Now what all are the parameters here? This is why I told you to this. When we write the parameters, you will understand why I discussed server client model all on a sudden. Here you have to write, first of all, a parameter like host equal to localhost. Okay, since we are working from our standalone system, our MySQL is installed in our computer only. So we have to write host equal to localhost. Why host equal to localhost? Because if you do not write, if you are working in a server client system, then you have to write here the name of the server. I told you that normally the database are always stored in the server. That means I have to access my database, tables under the database, everything from the server itself. So here comes the name of the server. But in our lab, since we are working from the standalone system, we will write host equal to, host means who is holding the database. Where is the existence of that particular table or the database? That has to come here. So host equal to localhost. Then you have to write here user. Who is user? User is basically the user ID. Fine. So we'll write user equal to root. Now normally you have seen when you worked with MySQL, you just clicked on MySQL icon, it opened, and when it opened it asked you for some password. So you entered the password before you start working with MySQL. But you never have seen while working with MySQL you have to give any username. But original installation when it is done with the server client model, then username is also provided. So in our case there is no username, so we will write user equal to root. User equal to root means you find out there is no user ID here. MySQL is to be found out from its original directory. That's what it means. And there is another parameter called password. Password, if you remember in our lab, most probably we have put 4 stars, maybe I am wrong. So whatever be the password which you give when you start working with MySQL, that password you have to mention. Okay? And then you have to write the 4th parameter, you have to write database equal to whichever database you want to fetch. I told you along with my SQL commands notes towards the end that whichever database you are trying to access, you need to write use whatever. Say my database name is class 12, so I need to write use class 12. Then only what I can do, I can execute all the MySQL commands on the tables which are under this class 12 database. Fine. So from wherever you are trying to access the tables, that particular database name has to come within this quotation mark. So in my case here, I have given the name CL. Okay. So this whole thing has to be there. This whole thing will establish a connection between the MySQL database. Here is the database. Fine. And here is your Python program. So what is the purpose of this MC? MC is the connection object which is building a connection between the database and this Python script. That is the basic thing which you have to understand. Fine? Remaining part I am going to tell you in my next video.